Welcome back to this special broadcast where we are breaking it down for you, various aspects of coronavirus and how it impacts our lives, how it's impacting the world right now. All the information that you need to know to arm yourself and prepare yourself for this battle against coronavirus is what you will get here on Mirror Now. It's a special broadcast from 8 to 11 p.m. We've spoken about how it's impacted the world of sports, whether you should be attending any sporting events or not and why. Then we spoke about just how panicky should you get? What is it that you should do and not do to protect yourself? Now we're going to talk about travel. Now we're going to talk about to what extent can you move around? Should you go to the airports and railway stations and abroad? If you had a vacation planned and you need to now reschedule that, what are your options across the world, viewers? The tourism industry has taken a hit due to coronavirus and India is no exception. In fact, the government has taken a very, very big step 24 hours ago, and perhaps it's the best step that they could have taken at this point of time, and timely decision being taken there of saying that we are going to suspend all visas to our country right now in order to protect ourselves from coronavirus. Some stringent travel curbs have been put in place. The government has also advised everybody to avoid unnecessary travel. Let me just take you through how you as an Indian and how your life gets impacted. The OCI card holders have been barred from entering our country till April 15. This is over and above all the foreign nationals. They're not allowed in our country right now. All visas have been suspended except if you're on a diplomatic visa or an employment visa. Indian travelers also, by the way, can be quarantined upon arrival. So don't think that if you are not going to Italy or China and you're going elsewhere in the world, you may not run into trouble. You could. By the time you're back, the government may have decided that you too need to be in quarantine at least for 14 days. Indians specifically coming in from China, Italy, Iran, South Korea, Spain, France and Germany will have to be in 14 days quarantine. There is no option. These are the countries that have been badly hit and the cases are multiplying exponentially in these nations. So if you're somebody or if you know somebody who's traveling to that country or coming back, know this, that for 14 days you will be in quarantine once you're back in India. Now, even if you're going to some other country for a longer period or in a couple of weeks, here is what United States has done. Today they came out and said that they are going to ban all travelers from Europe except United Kingdom. So anybody who's going from Europe to United States cannot enter the country anymore. And these are the kind of advisories and restrictions that all countries are changing on a daily basis. So it's not if today this is the reality, tomorrow there wouldn't be other countries who could get added to that list. For example, everybody who's arriving and landing in Israel has to be in a self-quarantine for 14 days. In your own homes, but for 14 days you cannot step out. Travelers who visited Italy or South Korea wanting to enter India will need a certificate having tested negative. These are some of the rules that we have right now and some of the other countries who have put in these places. Screening process is being undertaken at 30 airports across the country right now. What's the update on ground? Let me see if I can go across to Pramod, who's joining us from the Chennai airport. Pramod, what's the situation at the airport? Are there a lot of people who are coming in?
Well, we're at Chennai airport currently, and after waiting for almost 2 hours, this is the maximum number of buzz we can find out. Imagine this is not even 5% of the people who would be in Chennai at this moment currently. And look at the people, those who actually are passengers, those who are working. Everybody is wearing a mask. The self-etiquette has extended to a greater level that only shows a kind of panic and fear at certain mass. And however, the state government had made it very clear that there is no need to panic and only precautions required. That also you can see with the passengers. They are following all the etiquettes that is required, necessary, and the thing is that in Chennai airport alone, there are two ambulances that is also on standby. That according to the state government has made it very clear that these are connected directly to the GH, that's the Government General Hospital. Anybody who is suspected to be even if they have high fever, immediately they are transported to the hospital. That's the ambulances over there. And for now, thankfully, it's the Tamil Nadu had one corona positive patient who is also negative right now. The state health minister just tweeted 2 days back claiming that he has responded to all the medications and he's fine. And he says that so far, other than that, no other patient has been reported. And this is how Chennai Airport looks. Believe me, this is not how Chennai Airport looks at a normal time period. What crowd you see right now over here, this is just 5% of what people would be here at a normal time.
Pramod, is this the domestic terminal or the international or combined together? What are we looking at? These visuals of a pretty much a ghost town airport. Is this domestic or international?
Well, this is actually the international airport terminal, and larger precaution has been taken only at this location right now. In fact, all the passengers who arrive at the spot, they are given 2 forms to fill, and even checking also starts inside the terminal itself. This is the arrival terminal for the international flights, and this is what you see over here. Definitely not. This is not the way it looks normally, and the passengers will be are asked to fill in 2 forms. They have to declare about the countries they're coming from, and also any health condition as such. Then they go for a physical examination, post which only they are allowed to leave the airport. There also they have 2 ambulances on standby for 24 hours.
Okay.
And this is how all restrictions are in place in Tamil Nadu in Chennai Airport.
All right, Pramod, thanks so much for bringing us this update. And that's what you see at many airports across the world right now, as people begin to cancel their travel in the fear that they may get stranded somewhere, they may get quarantined somewhere. What should we do? What should be our plan for the coming few months? Dr. DR Rai, former General Secretary of IMA, joins us this evening. Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, Joint Managing Director for Apollo Hospitals. Bhavesh Oza, Director for Blue Star Air Travel Services. And Ashwini Kakkar, CEO of Mercury Travel, also with us. Let me actually first begin with Dr. Rai. Dr. Rai, what is the travel advisory? We are looking at summer vacations. Most people, some of them have international holidays planned, some have domestic. Should they start cancelling already?
Really, it has become a very difficult now to say. In one word, I can say it is a world war against coronavirus. It is a world war against coronavirus. And all the countries have given the advisory not to travel. Even Indian government has also given the advisory. Even they are asking OCI person not to travel to India before by 15th of April. Even America has banned the entry of all European countries for 30 days. Other countries are also advocating like that, don't go there. And it is a personal advice to each and every member of the country, every citizen of the country. Until unless you are not having any urgent work, kindly don't travel to even other places also. Because by traveling, this coronavirus has traveled from China to other countries. So any person going from the country which is affected with the coronavirus is definitely taking the virus with him, and he is going to infect to others also. So it becomes a duty. We should avoid the travel as much as possible until unless. And now even the government, all the government has given the advisory. They will not allow the person. And if person has entered in the country without informing them, he is being screened there. And if little high temperature is there, he is being kept in the quarantine. Except we don't have any other thing by which we can control this disease. So the only advisory is even until unless it is not must, you should not travel at all.
Okay, until unless it's a must, don't travel at all. Then what happens to the plans that have already been made? Ashwini Kakkar, how many airlines now, are giving refunds or giving us the option of rescheduling? Dr. Rai, I'll come back to you. Let me just quickly get in a word from Mr. Kakkar as well. Please.
So I think let me start by first saying that I think it's a great strategy to contain the virus, which is the strategy adopted by the Indian government and later followed by the United States government as well. So this containment strategy is a very good one. And now this leads to two parts of the whole thing. One part is the safety and security aspect, and the other part, so this is the medical aspect, which I think has also been talked about a little bit. And in that aspect, I think unless it's absolutely critical, I think it's important for everybody to try and avoid their plans. The other side of the thing is the business and commercial side of this whole thing. Please understand that the travel and tourism industry as a whole is the single largest industry in the world. It's a $7 trillion industry which employs 10% of the world's employable people and which contributes 9% to the world GDP. So I think these are big numbers, and this whole entire economy is going to take a severe hit. It is likely that it may push certain countries even into recession. Now, clearly, there's a lot of stuff going on, I think, in terms of the kind of advisory that India has issued. What might end up happening is that all the international airlines will find it very difficult to fly into India because they will have no seat load factors. Except for the diplomats and a few others who are, on employment visas, other people cannot travel into India. So I think all the international carriers will find it very difficult to fill their planes. And that will be a very important aspect of this. And a lot of the flights will either get cancelled or postponed or combined, 3-4 flights into one flight and so on and so forth. So there will be delays, and people should also work around these things, even if it is critical travel. Now, on the other hand, if you see, all the events are getting cancelled, whether it is religious events, Makkah and Medina are closed. Similarly, the Vatican City is closed, Jerusalem is closed. A lot of these on the religious side are closed. Secondly, if you see the major conferences around the world, Basel Watch World got cancelled, the Geneva Motor Show got cancelled, ITB got cancelled, the World Travel and Tourism Conference in Mexico got cancelled. So a lot of these events are getting cancelled. And of course, sporting events are also getting cancelled. The NBA announced that there will be no more basketball for the rest of the season. And the Olympics also are coming under threat as we go forward. Now, in all of these things, the domestic industry is also suffering hugely. Indigo, day before yesterday, put out a statement saying that their seat load factors are down by 20%. On the other hand, China Airlines, for their domestic flights and international flights, put out a thing saying their passenger numbers are down 84.5%. So Indigo numbers are also going to go downwards. I think right now they are at 20% lower than normal. They may go down to even 30 or 40%. Similarly, hotel occupancies are already down, and hotel occupancies, for example, in Hong Kong are down 90%.
Right.
In India, they are currently down only about 12 to 15%, but it is likely that this number will go down because corporate travel is also taking a big hit.
Yes.
And all the employees of large corporations are being told to either work from home or use video conferencing and other methodologies and not go out and travel too much.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there is no doubt that there is going to be tougher times when it comes to the hospitality industry and the aviation industry as people cut down on their travel, they're going out. But Bhavesh, if I had to ask you today about, as a passenger, as a traveler, for how long should I hold out? Should I start pushing my plans to June, July or August? If the airlines begin to reschedule their flights and change the scheduling, that will also impact my plans. So as a traveler, what should I do at this point?
So, well, if I could answer this question, then I would have termed myself as a god, because it's really hard and very difficult to say that up to what period can somebody wait. If you couldn't see, I was promoting travel a week back.
Yeah.
That Corona se darona, keep traveling. But yesterday, the government of India did a smart move by containing people from travel. And again followed by the US government. So we really don't know which way are we moving towards and which other country will be banning you. Recently, Thailand government today morning decided visa on arrivals to be suspended even for Indians. Then they came up with the advisory that they will restart it, and then again they gave an advisory that they are cancelling again. So it is really uncertain to say when can you plan your travel next? How and what should be the precise date? I mean, no one can give an answer to this question.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But you're also right, and I want to speak a little bit more about some nations where restrictions have already come in and the others where it's not happened, but it's taking place right now. For like you said, Bhavesh, we've seen that Thailand is
Yes.
now saying all on-arrival visas, including that from India, suspended. What would your advice
Yes.
be currently to not make any plans at all? Because today some countries have put in regulations, tomorrow more countries may add to it, and it's a very quickly evolving situation.
Yeah, the situation is changing. I would say right now, daily, it could be termed into hours from tomorrow onwards or the day after. So it's very difficult to say where to travel. What at the most I can tell you is travel is a psychological need. People, if they want to travel, let's do some travel in the domestic domain. So domestic, still a lot of places are open to travel. And in India, coronavirus is still imported factor. It is not yet that it's a homegrown thing where people are starting affected internally. So domestic is something where I would recommend if at all travel is required and they want to travel.
Actually, I just want to let our viewers know this because, like Bhavesh said, it's changing on an hourly basis now. And if you have any travel plans, you could go somewhere and you could get stranded in that country. You could be quarantined in that country, and there could be a possibility that we come out with stricter restrictions and then say that your return it gets dependent on that. The government is trying its best. And the government is trying to get Indians out of Iran. The government is trying to get Indians out of Italy. But on a daily basis, we are getting requests from people who are stranded in various parts of the world and are waiting for government to help them and get them back. Mr. Kakkar, you wanted to make a point?
Yes, the only thing I wanted to say was that, if we look at the inbound tourism into India, of course, this is a fantastic step. And, we are very happy that the government took this step on the containment side. But it must be realized that on a daily basis, the country is going to lose 500 crores of GDP because of inbound tourism being almost completely blocked. This is a huge number, and the travel and tourism industry will definitely be reeling under the effects of this for not only for a month or two, but for many months to come. And the government may want to think about supporting that industry. But other than this, if you look at what the response of the various governments has been, the United Kingdom has committed $39 billion to fighting coronavirus. Similarly, the European Union has committed $29 billion to fight coronavirus. The Australian government, $11 billion, and so on and so forth. Hong Kong has put money into people's pockets, individuals' pockets, and said that, we will try and fight this on a person-to-person basis. And the US government has said we'll put $8.3 billion into fighting this coronavirus. Now, clearly, the Indian government may also need to look for a certain kind of response in this arena. As you know, the UK finance minister yesterday cut interest rates from 0.75% to 0.25%, which is a humongous cut, unheard of in Western developed economies. And I think these kind of responses, I know that some of these may seem a little bit like knee-jerk responses, but I think on one side, we have the medical part, the other side, we have the economic part, all of these to deal with. And on the third side, we don't want people to panic and yet carry on with their lives as best as possible.
Well, I don't know. It all seems slightly dark and depressing right now, Ashwini Kakkar, and I'm sure you'll agree with me because we were hoping that this year would be better for our economy. And now we are staring at a situation that world over, this could badly impact the economic growth, and perhaps it will be a worse year. But obviously, there is firstly the concern about health and lives of people, and then it comes to the economic aspect, which is also going to be disastrous. I just want to point out, Prime Minister Modi also tweeted today, and he said, "Say no to panic, say yes to precautions. No minister of the central government will travel abroad in the upcoming days. I urge our countrymen to also avoid non-essential travel. We can break the chain of spread and ensure safety of all by avoiding large gatherings. I have a question, Bhavesh, as you make your point, also answer this question of mine. What are my possibilities of a cancellation and refund? Do airlines for such scenarios have special guidelines that if there is an outbreak and there are mass widespread cancellations, your money will be given to you or you will be given an opportunity to reschedule? Is there any system in place?
Yeah, so I would like to first take some cues from Mr. Ashwini Kakkar, what he recently said. So a couple of things which a lot of governments abroad have done to ensure that the economy moves properly, because this has badly affected the economy. To Singapore government has given tourism subsidies to the tourism industry. Likewise, in India, if I could recommend that the recently proposed TCS and TDS can be abolished completely. This would definitely help the tourism industry. Like Mr. Kakkar said, tourism industry is generating millions of jobs. It is 9% contribution to the world economy. So if something of this sort, if the government puts in, that's fantastic for the travel industry. Now to answer your question related to the cancellation policies which the passenger has to look for in terms of the air travel. So right now the scenario is a little, I would not say little, it's completely chaotic because every airline has got a different cancellation policy. I would thank some of the airlines that, they have made rescheduling free. And I would also like to thank some of the airlines that they have made cancellation to the affected areas. They have, waived it off. So, but more and more, policies coming from the airlines that supporting the passengers, that would definitely help and make the passengers feel less panicky. And at the same time, we have to understand that the losses the airline and the tourism industry is going into it. So we have to kind of make a balance between the refunds, reissues, cancellation charges from the passenger's perspective, and at the same time, we also have to look out at the losses the airline and the tourism industry is going to face.
Okay.
So yes, the airline is trying their level best to solve these issues.
Okay. So a little chaotic right now. If you already have a cancellation policy, maybe you need to read the fine print. But most airlines are trying to give a way out to the passengers, at least internationally.
Just to add.
Yes, Mr. Kakkar.
Just to add to that, I think if you're a customer, I would strongly advise you that if you have an insurance policy, please look at that policy.
Okay.
Also, please try and invoke the Act of God clause as far as you are concerned. And sometimes look at your credit card things. They will also offer you, full refund in case the credit card has been used and so on and so forth. So there is the airline recourse that is available to you. There is the insurance recourse that's available to you. There is the credit card recourse that's available to you. And equally, if nothing works, I think at least invoke the Act of God and write to the airline so that at a subsequent date, if there is a change of heart by the airline, you might get your entire money back.
Okay, that's extremely helpful. Thank you for giving those pointers to our viewers. Let's also say good evening to Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, who's joining us right now. Let me first quickly go across to one of our viewers calling us from Delhi. Radha is on the phone line and she has a query. Go ahead, please. Okay, we've lost the line with Radha. Jesse is also on the phone line, calling from Bengaluru and has been patiently waiting. Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Good evening. And it's been a wonderful debate and you have given good awareness. Hello?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just have one question. You have been showing that mask is essential for prevention. Yeah? And also the sanitizers. But it's sad to say that it is off the shelf in every pharmacy. And when we go there, they just tell us that it's just not there. And I went to a pharmacy and he gave me only one small bottle of 50 ml and he said, this is all for one family. So is there any alternative?
Okay, good question. I just want to point out though, repeatedly we've been saying this and our experts have been saying, mask is perhaps essential only for those people who are already infected or have some medical condition and so their immunity is low. If you're perfectly fine and healthy, you don't necessarily need to wear a mask. Sanitizer obviously is more about good hygiene. Dr. Reddy, could you help our viewers with other possible options if the supermarket is running out of sanitizer, and what do you do?
So I think as you appropriately observed, the mask should be spared for those who are either in the front line in the healthcare scenario or for people who have a cold, a cough, and should not be spreading this to others, spreading this infection. So people who are proactively wearing this mask to protect themselves from others, that is actually not a recommended procedure or protocol. In terms of the hand sanitizers, it is being repeated time and time again that please, number one, most efficient methodology for you is to wash your hands. And during hand wash, very often people do a very cursory hand wash. Please also remember to wash the upper surface of the hand because the virus could travel as well. So a complete hand wash as frequently as possible, definitely not to touch the face as far as possible. And if you're going to touch the face, make sure that you've washed your hands before touching your face. So these, I think, are the best methodologies. But also, I think the pharmacies are trying their very best to keep up the supply and also to prevent anyone from hoarding. I think many of the online pharmacies as well, ours also does have availability. So please keep trying and please keep washing hands.
Okay, Dr. Rai, would you want to add to that? Are there any other options that are available? So, when you're traveling and so perhaps may not be constantly available.
The viewer was asking about the sanitation and about the mask. As it has been already told, mask is required only to those persons who are suffering, so they should not spread the infection. And second thing, mask is needed only to the health workers and particularly the doctors. And second thing is, as the sanitizer has gone off the shelf, they should not worry at all. Soap and water is better than even your sanitization. And washing the hands only like this from upper, that is definitely to be washed. But minimum 20 to 25 seconds, you should rub your hands properly, and you should clean from the webs also and from the nails also. If you observe this thing, you are protecting yourself and you are not spreading the infection to others also. And they should not be panicky. As far as sanitizations are concerned, only in the today's paper, it has been reported that some fake company, fake factories there, which has been sealed. Our mentality is very bad. Once the country is facing so much problem, people are hoarding the mask, people are hoarding the sanitization, and they are manufacturing the sanitized fluids, a fake one. So my request to all citizens is only soap and water is with you. Frequently, kindly wash your hand. Ask your children once they enter in your house, ask them to wash the hand. Before taking meal, they should wash the hand. Coming inside the house, they should wash the hand. And by this, they can protect themselves. And if somebody is coughing, you should keep yourself at least 2 meters, not 1 meter, even at least 2 meters away from him. Because this infection is spreading due to droplets, not the airborne. It is a droplet. Until unless both drops are not coming in contact of you, you will not suffer. And the distance which this droplet travel is 4 feet, 3 feet to 4 feet. So I'm saying that way, keep yourself away about 2 meters, I mean about 5 to 6 feet. So you can protect yourself. That's not a problem. Okay. We should not worry about the corona. We should protect ourselves until,
So there was another caller, and Radha's query was more about domestic travel. Dr. Reddy, if the advisory is to not go to public spaces and mass gatherings, then should we also avoid domestic travel and airports and railway stations?
So I think containment is right now the best methodology. If you look at the relative spread across various countries, it's kind of like a linear growth. And India has so far seen a very good containment. I would actually give a lot of credit to the government for all the proactive steps that they've done, whether it was, the evacuation, the containment, the surveillance of people who had been in contact. they've been extremely proactive. And now it's for us as members of public to also play this very important role of keeping ourselves away as far as possible so that we don't spread. So I would very directly say that if you can avoid travel, please do so for the next few days, and let's see how things evolve and how things emerge. If you can avoid a crowd, definitely do so. These are, in public interest, in safety of the overall country, because right now, I reiterate once again, the strongest methodology for India is containment. I also want to say that parallelly, the government is getting ready. We're working with private providers. FICCI, various associations have been roped in along with all major private providers to say, be in readiness. But for now, all treatment and all screening is happening in the government. The private players are not, they're doing initial surveillance and then sending people into the government infrastructure if required. Self-containment, so isolation at home, is one of the most powerful methodologies that is available to us today. I request all members of public to please follow that protocol.
Okay, very quickly, before I wrap up this part of the conversation, which is, specifically focusing on travel as well, to our travel experts, many are asking the question that if United States has said that passengers coming in from Europe will not be allowed, does it also include a stopover? People who have flights from India stopping over at Frankfurt or any other airport and then going all the way to US. Bhavish, does that also get impacted?
Well, yes, definitely it will get impacted, although there is not a very clear clarity that I have. Probably Mr. Kakkar could throw some light more on that. But it will be impacted. So my advice would be either travel through other airlines or direct, because from India, we've got a lot of direct flights to the US. Travel that, or you can travel via UK. I don't know, a lot of people might confuse UK with Europe, including into that, but exempted is UK and Europe is not. So if they have options to travel via British Airways, via Virgin Atlantic, and via other airlines, non-European side, I would recommend more on that.
Well, I would say if you haven't booked your tickets yet, you'll be better off just waiting it out for a couple of weeks to see really where this goes for United States, for Europe, and even for our own country, and then make your travel plans. I'm going to thank Ashwini Kakkar and Bhavish Oza for joining us. Dr. Rai and Dr. Reddy, please continue to stay with us, as after the break, we're going to now focus on the economic and the business aspect of it, and also continue to take your calls. If you have queries for our doctors, then you can call in. Suffice to say right now, as far as travel is concerned, minimize it. Don't travel unless it's absolutely essential. The next couple of weeks are going to be extremely crucial for this entire world. And the way this virus is spreading, whether it gets contained, which are the parts which get worse affected, which are the parts which are able to overcome this, if India is able to, win this battle in a faster pace, then perhaps others can also follow. Until then, until we know what's going on, it's just better to not travel, especially if you're going abroad, because you may end up landing in that country. But if you're coming back in a couple of weeks, by then the government may have changed the rules, and the government may then ask you to be quarantined for 14 days or to stay back until your screening is done. I can tell you that there are many who are stranded currently in Italy and Spain, where they're not getting enough access to infrastructure and support system for their screening to be done. And unless that gets done, they won't be brought back to India. So a series of problems really emerging. It's just better to, in our war against coronavirus, to not travel too much, domestic or international, until this gets contained. That's the part that we can play actually in our war against coronavirus. Stay with me. On the other side, the big impact on business and economy. What should we expect? Stay tuned. Welcome back. The corona outbreak has now hit India and the world as economies across the globe begin to struggle, businesses begin to struggle. We were just talking about the tourism industry and the aviation industry, and that's obviously one part of it. But this is just going to further dent our hope of economic growth and revival. Remember, India had a really, really tough year. and we were hoping of a turnaround soon, that we were hoping that in 2020 things begin to improve and we get back on the growth part. Now, what impact will coronavirus have, and will that further dent it, and to what extent is the big question? Just to give you what's been happening otherwise outside of the economy, there is an estimate that says the trade could be impacted to about $348 million. Our currency has been impacted because of global fears of the impact of coronavirus. Globally, the markets are crashing as we speak. The US markets are down almost 8 to 9%. Today, the Sensex was down over 8%, 3,000 points. And today was not the only day that we've seen this kind of carnage. All of this because of fears of what coronavirus outbreak will do to our global economy. So just let's try and decode this and understand from a layman's point of view. Our doctors continue to stay with us to help us understand the impact on health and how much money will we need to really recover on that aspect. And then we have our business experts, we've got Dr. Rai and Dr. Sangeeta Reddy, who continue to stay with us, and Jayati Ghosh and Ajay Bagga joining us this evening. Mr. Bagga, let's begin with you. Why is it that the stock markets are crashing world over so badly?
The stock markets in the end, Tanvi, are discounting mechanisms. They see the future most perfectly. Right now, what is getting discounted by the markets is that it's a pandemic. China has been able to stop the spread, but in the Western countries, both Europe as well as US, there is a fear that it's spreading too fast. And whether, what will be the economic impact? If you look at the US, for example, 75% of the companies in the US have got their supply chains linked into China, and those have got very hugely impacted. For China, if you look at, we have an index called the PMI index, which is basically showing both manufacturing and services. Above 50 means that the economy is growing. The Chinese manufacturing PMI came at a historic low of 35 for February. The services index came at 29. Car sales fell 79% year on year. So, the second biggest economy will probably come in at -4% year on year growth, as against a +6% that was expected. Global growth for the first quarter, we are anticipating to come at -1%, as against a +2.2%.
This is what they call a recession?
It is a recession. It is a looming recession. Recession, we technically call 2 quarters of negative growth.
Okay.
So you will get the first quarter negative, and the second quarter is starting in April, and we are not seeing much of an economic growth pickup. That's what's spooking the markets.
Okay, Jayati Ghosh, would you want to add to that? We're always told that our fundamentals are strong, but if the whole world is down and out, and economies like China begin to struggle at this pace, what happens to us? We've already come from 8% to 4.5%.
Well, first of all, our fundamentals are not strong. This is an economy that was already weak before the outbreak of this pandemic. But also, we're really in uncharted territory. I don't think we're in a position to put any numbers now. We can't say -1%, -2%. We actually have never been in a situation like this before. Just the action of President Trump in saying that there will be no incoming flights from Europe has already dealt a massive blow to a whole range of European economies. So we are now in a situation where the kinds of knock-on effects that we can experience are immense. And within India, we're already in a state of semi-lockdown in many cities. In our own city, Delhi, there's a state of emergency. Institutions are being closed. Schools and colleges are being closed. All people are being told to work from home. But remember that there are many, many people, self-employed, informal workers, who cannot afford to stop working. And they will keep coming. That's also a possibility of the spread of the disease, but it also indicates that we really don't have the kind of state capacity or public health system that China had, which enabled them to actually confront and deal with the epidemic that they were facing. So I think in India, we are actually facing a potential catastrophe because we are already a weak economy. We are facing massive, massive global headwinds, which are unprecedented, and we are facing the potential of spread domestically, which we do not know how to contain adequately.
Before I go on with the containment aspect of it, Ajay Bagga, and I agree, perhaps this is uncharted territory for a lot of us to see this kind of outbreak and the impact. But, you know, many have asked me this question: what if we go into a state of lockdown, because that's the only way to contain this? What if, you know, what Italy is doing right now, we say, oh, complete shutdown, no movement, no incoming, no outgoing, for say 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What's the impact that economy and the business will have just for that 2 weeks of lockdown then? What are we talking about?
We have never seen this, you know, be it SARS, be it swine flu, be it MERS, be it Ebola. Normally economies would go down. It was not worldwide, it wasn't global, it wasn't on this scale. That is the big risk. Now, what has worked, you know, what you said, this lockdown, Russia was the first to close down its borders, and there have been only 20 reported cases in Russia.
Correct.
So lockdown works. China, if you see, because what is the main thing healthcare professionals are teaching us? That's flatten the curve. What does that mean? That if you keep peaking, the new infections keep peaking, you will overwhelm the healthcare, no matter how big.
Correct.
You know, we don't have that many hospital beds like Western Europe or US, a number of beds per population. We are much behind. So flattening the curve means self-isolation, means quarantine. In fact, you know, there are a lot of academic articles which have come on Taiwan.
Yes.
Nearly 2.5 million Chinese travel to Taiwan. It's 81 kilometers, 81 miles from China.
Yeah.
They were able to contain because they had a 124 item protocol that they followed of checking and making sure quarantining, mass testing, and then taking very aggressive measures. I think we need to follow that in India. We don't have the capacity right now, but we will need to, I think that lays down a very good groundwork.
But for example, you know, it said that China at one point then shut down its factories at a large scale, that
Yes.
so much so that the air there became cleaner
Yes.
because these factories weren't functional.
Yeah.
Now, if India had to look at a possibility like that to ensure that it doesn't spread or the repercussions are not as catastrophic, what would that do to our growth then?
It would go into negative, and as Professor Ghosh said, you know, every day, Tanvi, the numbers are getting worse.
Yeah.
So, and that's why the markets are also really losing it, because you aren't able to establish. As of February, we thought it will be 6 weeks kind of an issue for the economy. Now already we are looking at probably a 6-month impact.
Yeah.
SARS and Ebola, MERS, they gave us a model where for a quarter the economy gets impacted. The second quarter it picks up, and by the end of the year you are on a normalized growth. We are not seeing that right now. I hope these numbers will improve. The Chinese economic numbers are already improving.
Yes, they are. Yes.
93% of their public sector units have opened. SMEs are still low at about 50%, but migrant labor has moved to 100% returning. You know, so there are a lot of data that's coming out. India, our electricity consumption grew 10% in February.
Yes.
So, you know, we were at the cusp of hopefully getting back some kind of mojo in the economy, and now we are getting hit. So this will have an impact.
Okay, let's get to the other part, and if I can go back to Dr. Rai on the aspect of the cost for healthcare. Dr. Rai, are we ready for that? You know, additional infrastructure, additional quarantine facilities, treatment facilities, and isolation wards and testing centers. What would that entail?
As far as the health industry is concerned or health sector is concerned, I can say you, we Indian doctors are at the top and we are the best possible person. But the only problem we are lacking in the infrastructure, which is not available with the government also. And that is the biggest, and the second is our population growth. Because our population is so high, it is not possible to keep so many hospitals ready for the isolation and others. That's why our country, I mean our health minister and other government of India has stressed particularly on quarantines and containment of the persons coming from one place to other place. I think it won't be that much problem if we stick and if we follow the protocols which has been given by the WHO, which have been given by our government also. If we follow, definitely we will be in the position to contain this disease here only, and it should not make a more panicky to the public at all.
Dr. Reddy, would you want to add to that? What is it that the government needs to look at right now, and what could possibly be the cost of it? There is a fear because we have such large population that if it gets beyond a point, then the spread will be far too much and will exponentially increase. Is India ready to tackle that?
So let's put a few facts in front. I know overall everybody's extremely worried about the scenario, but I do want to iterate the fact that we're seeing that the mortality ratio for this virus is relatively low. So what you saw in SARS and what you saw in MERS were upwards of, SARS was 10%, MERS was up to 30% in terms of mortality. Whereas if you actually look at this current virus, it's only 3.5%. I mean, that's still sad, but it's 3.5%. And if you remove the China numbers, then it's actually going below 2%. Also, I think we look at the relative mortality across countries, we're seeing that Italy has a very high mortality rate. So it's important for us to catch this early. Contain is the single biggest success formula that everybody should collectively practice right now. But let me also say that besides the good work that the government has done on containment, they are also proactively preparing for phase 2. And in that uptick of numbers, when the kind of linear curve, we keep growing in numbers and the need for infrastructure is there, the health secretary and the health minister had a very serious meeting in Delhi with major providers, asked associations to collate lists, and all providers do have facilities that they have kept ready, whether it's 10 beds or 20 beds or 50 beds. So collectively, there is a massive private infrastructure support ecosystem which is ready if the country needs it. So I would once again say that I think India is handling this well. I believe that public need to truly be partners in the containment. And one of the important things, besides the fact that the hand wash and the sanitizers, is the whole aspect of sneezing, coughing, discipline. So it's one thing for people to stay far away or keep the distance. The other one is to just follow the protocol of sneezing either in a tissue or into your sleeve. Let that sneezing not be out in the open. And finally, I think one thing India is going to teach the world is not to do any more handshakes or high fives, but the namaste is really the way to go.
Well, I just want to point out that that's true, and a lot of leaders across the world have now started to
that we should find the positive.
Yes, started to use the namaste instead of the handshake, but I don't think that's helped the Canadian Prime Minister at all, because news just coming in that he's self-isolating after his wife developed flu-like symptoms and is now being tested for coronavirus. No confirmation on whether that's been, the results have come out, but precautions being taken across the world right now as we speak. Jayati Ghosh, if I can come back to you to now break it down and understand what are the business aspects that and verticals that will surely get impacted. You know, we have the aviation, the hospitality, the travel industry, manufacturing, if we start looking at a possibility of shutting down some of our factories and those kind of, public spaces. What else? How else can this damage our economy?
Well, this will damage in many, many ways, because it will actually have negative multiplier effects on all other industries. So yes, absolutely, travel, tourism, hospitality are already impacted. Events are being cancelled, people are not going to places. All of these things then mean that that spending reduces the profits and the incomes of all of those industries, which in turn means that they demand less goods and less services. And so you have this negative employment effect, negative multiplier feeding through the economy. Remember that this is a situation where already our rural economy was in distress, where already agriculture was facing major problems, where already we had a declining demand situation according to the consumption surveys. And now you're adding this further shock So it's not just a supply shock, it's a very, very severe demand shock, which is adding to significantly the recessionary tendencies. And of course, investment is hardly likely to happen in such a situation of uncertainty. So we had investment rates coming down significantly over the past 5 years. Now, in fact, why would you invest at this moment? You would inevitably wait. And that in turn has yet another negative impact on all of the industries that would have met that investment demand.
Okay, so the final question, Ajay Bagga. I just had Ashwini Kakkar on the show just a short while ago, and he was talking about how various countries have announced these packages for the economy and for the growth and for the industries. Is our government in a state to do that currently?
We don't have fiscal space. We are expecting RBI to bring in some monetary stimulus, but I would say now leave aside the fiscal deficit, because this is an emergency situation. I know, like Hong Kong has put $10,000 into every Hong Kong adult's pockets.
Correct.
We don't have that kind of resources. Trump is talking of a payroll tax holiday.
Yes.
I think something like that to at least the salaried, but you know, our thing is 83% of our labor is in informal sector. Lot is in construction, agriculture, who we can't reach, but we can reach through a direct benefit transfer. So I think to the poorest segments, if we can, like we are doing for the farmers, the 6,000 rupees, I think something should be put in before May into all the poorest segments' pockets. I think that could be one stimulus which will help people. Otherwise, you know, this demand destruction can be very difficult for the poorest segments.
Well, I'm sure, you know, we will have a lot more conversations in the coming weeks as we now begin to see this impact. Yes, I'm running out of time, but I think Jayati Ghosh has a point. Go ahead, please, quickly.
Just very quickly, we cannot think about fiscal space at this point.
Yes.
Angela Merkel in Germany said, we are first going to do whatever it takes to allow the German population and the economy to recover, then we will look at the fiscal space.
Yes, and I think the whole world is going to be doing that right now.
We have to worry about fiscal space. It's really not a relevant concern.
I completely agree with you. I think the government will have to start looking at various options of how they're going to tackle this. There is no denying the fact that apart from the health impact and apart from the fact that we need to talk about saving lives and containing the virus, there is a larger economic impact that we need to brace ourselves for. We were already in a very, very tough spot, and this is just going to make it worse. So the government needs to get on it quickly and not wait any longer to then see what steps can be taken. Completely out of time on this conversation, but the special focus on coronavirus continues, so stay with me.